Hi, I'm Susie, and I design and press cookie press discs. We have more than 250 shapes and over 30 themes, designed and manufactured right here in the United States by our small family-owned company. Now you might be thinking that a cookie press is just for Christmas and Christmas trees, but I want you to think again, because I'm going to show you how to get creative with your cookie press all year long. Hi from sunny Colorado. Today I'm showing you how to make gingerbread spritz cookies. I'm going to be using the gingerbread boy and the gingerbread girl from, you guessed it, our gingerbread set. This is a very tasty recipe that's also really easy to press. Once we've gotten our dough made and our cookies pressed out and baked up, we're just going to be using some red, white, and green icing to decorate them. I'm hoping that I get through this blog in one piece today because I'm just getting over a pretty bad case of laryngitis, so bear with me if my voice kind of breaks in and out. But for now, let's go ahead and get started. I'm a bit of a broken record about this, but I say every time that the foundation to a good spritz cookie is to go ahead and cream your butter really, really thoroughly. And when I say cream it, I mean use an electric mixer and set it on your highest setting. For me, that's whip, and I'm going to pretend that I'm making frosting, and I'm going to get it really fluffed up and a lot of air incorporated. The butter will turn from the regular yellow it comes out of the fridge with into something a little bit lighter. So make sure that you cream your butter extremely well, because then you're going to have a recipe that's light and airy when you eat it, and it's going to be very easy to press. So I'm going to go ahead and cream my butter, and then we'll start adding the other ingredients. Alright, with my butter creamed, we have something that looks really terrific here. There's lots of air incorporated and the color has changed. It's nice and fluffy. The next step in this kind of spritz cookie is to go ahead and add our granulated sugar. You can just add it all at once and then cream it again, because that's how creamed cookies begin, is by creaming the butter and the sugar together. And with the sugar incorporated, it's even fluffier than it was before. So there's a good foundation. The wonderful flavors in this recipe are going to come from molasses, honey, vanilla, and the spices. I've got cinnamon and ginger and cloves in here. The next thing we want to do after adding our sugar is to add our wet ingredients. So I'm going to go ahead and begin with the honey and the molasses and incorporate those two at once. You don't really taste the honey in this recipe, it just gives a little bit richer flavor to the sweetness. With the molasses and honey incorporated in, the next wet ingredient is just 1 egg. I'm going to stop for a second and say I meant to add the vanilla at the same time as the egg, because why waste an extra step? I took a moment to add the spices to our flour mixture, and I do that just because it helps the spices come out nice and evenly throughout the dough. So go ahead and add the flour, and then we'll get to pressing them. Now that my ingredients are all incorporated, I've got a nice looking spritz dough here. It's got that kind of chunky spritz appearance that's going to make for a dough that's soft and easy to handle and easy to go through the press, but also stiff enough to hold those wonderful shapes that we're going to be making. So I'm going to go ahead and get cleaned up here, and then I'll get out the baking pans and the cookie press, and we'll get to pressing. Our next step is to load the cookie press. My favorite way of doing that is just to use a spoon and just pack it into your barrel and press it down with the back of the spoon. So once you get it inside here, you just want to use the back of your spoon to just push out any air bubbles that you might find in the barrel, because those air bubbles are going to make your cookies come out kind of goofy shaped, and that's not what we want, because the whole point of spritz cookies is for them to have an awesome shape. And I'll warn you, the gingerbread dough is a bit stickier than most. It's got all that molasses and honey in it, so it's sticky as far as spritz doughs go. So it's a little harder to pack in, but boy, the flavor is absolutely worth it. So I'm going to pack this up, and then we'll get the discs ready. I'm going to start with the gingerbread boy, and all you want to do is just plop your disc in the bottom ring of your press and go ahead and screw it on. I always say that the best technique is to press a click or two into the air to get your pressure set in the barrel and to get the dough to begin extruding so that your first cookie has at least a chance of coming out well. Very often the first few cookies when you're pressing are going to come out a little bit goofy because you're getting that pressure set. So let's see if they come out goofy and we have to throw a few back in the bowl, or if they're going to come out just right from the gate. Hey, there we go. That's a nice looking gingerbread boy. Alright, so I didn't have to warn you about the first few cookies ending up back in the bowl, because these are coming out just fine with one click, and they have a nice shape. They're not too big. He lost his foot, so he is going back in the bowl along with his missing foot. And then I'm going to wipe it clean to make sure that everything is nice and even, because otherwise the next one could come out a little bit goofy. He looks fine. So you don't want to let your cookies get too big, because the whole point is to have a nice crisp shape with a Spritz cookie. So if you're finding that they're coming out kind of big, hold back on your clicks if you have a 1 click per cookie type press, and just maybe give a half a click or 3/4 of a click, and you'll get into a rhythm where you think of this as a dough pump. Whether it takes a half a click, a full click, a really slow click, a click and a half, it's all okay. This is just a way to get the dough to extrude out onto the pan, that's all. So my guys actually look pretty good here. None of them are too fat or too thin, so that's pretty good. I've got the pan half full of gingerbread boys, and then I'm going to switch discs and press out the gingerbread girls. But I want to stop right here and show you an important technique when it comes to pressing both of these gingerbread shapes. I went ahead and got a little bowl full of water here, and what I'm going to do is just dip my finger in it and not let it get too wet, but just kind of damp. And then I'm going to go through and I'm going to kind of push in on the faces and then go tap, 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 tap on their bodies. Because gingerbread cookies are usually pretty flat, but Spritz cookies come out with nice high ridges, which are wonderful on things like snowflakes and other things like that. But on a gingerbread person, you want them to be kind of flat. So just go ahead and take that slightly damp finger and push side to side and then straight down on their faces, and then just tap, tap, tap across their bodies, just to kind of flatten them out a little bit. So hopefully you can see what I'm doing. I'll come in a little closer, tap side to side, and then straight down on their faces, and then tap, tap, tap across their bodies. And then they'll come out nice and smooth and flat. And they'll look a little bit cuter and be a little easier to decorate. One other thing to notice is that if when you're tapping them down, or even if when you press them they came out a little bit losing their definition, a little chunky around the middle, go ahead and just give them a squeeze so that they come out with that nice kind of curvy gingerbread man, gingerbread boy or girl shape. So just give them a little pinch if you want to. Mine didn't really need it, but just in case yours do, feel free to give them a little pinch around the waistline. I'm going to go ahead and change out my discs now and just take the gingerbread boy and let Mr. Bear here hang on to him, and grab the girl, toss her into the bottom ring, and go ahead and screw it on. I'm going to finish pressing out this pan with the girls. So I'm going to reset the pressure again. We've got a little dough extruding, and let's see if the first few end up back in the bowl with these gals or if they're going to press out just right. Can't believe I just said gals. How old-fashioned is that? There we go. They look just fine. Again, I'm trying not to do too long and hard of a click because I want them to come out nice and skinny just so that they maintain their definition. Whoops, that one didn't quite stick. Let's see if we can get her to stick. Oh, too fat. Back in the bowl. My pressure is off now. If that ever happens to you where you get kind of caught between clicks, press one cookie into the air and just wipe it away. And now you should be back on more of that one-click rhythm. So let's see. One click. Alrighty. There we go. Alright, the girls are all pressed out. I'm going to use my water to flatten them out the same way that I did the boys. Give a little tap, push side to side on their faces and then straight down, and then tap their bodies out so that you have a nice, flat, pretty surface to decorate. And then I'll get these into the oven. The girls are all pressed out and smoothed out, so now I'm going to give you guys a little close-up and show you how they turned out. The girls there on the bottom, and the little boys or men up on the top here. So they're going to go into my 400-degree oven and bake for about 6 to 10 minutes. Check Spritz cookies early and often because the edges tend to brown quickly, and once they start to brown, they really go. So check them often. So I'm going to start with one of the girls, and I'm going to pick her up and come on into the close-up camera here. And what I'm going to do, let's see if I have the right tip. Yep, I've got the number 2 tip. And what I want to do is just add the buttons on her body. Here she is. And actually I'm going to set her down. Give myself a little more stability here. I'm going to start my icing out, make sure it's coming out nice and smooth. There we go, Mr. Barry there can hold that. So I'm just going to add 3 dots. Very traditional decoration on a gingerbread person. 1. Actually, I'm going to give her 2. And then the other thing I want to do is just give a little ruffle on the hem of her skirt. So actually I find this easier to do when I'm holding it up. So I'm just going to pick it up and I'm going to create little squiggles on the bottom. I'm just going to start here and just go squiggle, 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 and just create a little ruffled edge on the bottom of her skirt. See? Just like that. So she's got a little ruffle going on there. And now I could go ahead and add her eyes. They'll be a little bit smaller than the buttons. Don't want them to be too big. But you want them to be nice and expressive. And then if you just had one tube, you could easily just switch out your tips for the one for the two. And now I'm going to use this thinner one. Oops, got to get it started too. Always have a clean tip when you begin. And I'm just going to add a little smiley mouth. And there. Now I have a happy gingerbread girl with just a little bit of ruffle on her skirt. You want to make sure that just like you did with flattening out the dough, that you've got a little dish of water to just tap your finger in. Don't let it get too wet because you don't want water dripping all over them. And just tap down a little bit on the eyes and the buttons and any other parts that might be poking up a little bit where you pulled up on the icing. That'll give it a nice, neat, finished look. I picked up another gingerbread girl, and this time I'm going to give her a little bow in her hair. And all you're going to want to do is draw a little kind of an X with wings. So here we go. Just going to set her down, and I'm going to start in the middle of where I want it to be, and just create kind of a triangle on one end, and cross over to the other side, down, and finish it off. And you can either leave it open like that, or you could go ahead and fill it in. And if you fill it in, and I use the number 1 tip because it's a little bit more precise, if you fill it in, just tap it down a little bit so it has a nice even finish. Now she's got a little white bow in her hair. How cute is that? So while I'm here with the number 1 tip, I'm going to give her her smile. There's a happy gingerbread girl. I'll tap down the little edge there so it doesn't get too pointy. And then I will add her eyes, which I could even, I'll show you, you could even do with the number 1 tip. You just have to make them a little bit bigger. Her eyes will be a little close together because she's got that bow there. Oh, she has the cutest expression. Wait till you see her. Actually, her eyes look pretty good. I don't even need to tap them down. So let's give her the traditional buttons down her belly here. She'll just have 3 buttons. She doesn't need a skirt. 1, 2, 3. Tap down the little ridges that are left there, if there are any. And there we go. A happy little gingerbread girl. See if you can get a close-up on her. I tightened the close-up camera in a little bit so you can see these details more. I went ahead and started on a gingerbread boy, and I gave him his eyes and his smile. And now I'm going to use the red icing to give him a cute little bow tie. So we're going to do it the exact same way that we did the bow on the girl. We're just going to start in the middle of where it should be. Let me get this icing started. Make sure it's ready to go. Make sure my tip is clean. I'm just going to start in the middle, and I'm going to go out and create a little triangle. Up, down, back to the center, and then cross over and do the same thing. And again, you could leave it open, or you could fill it in, and then just tap it down. So I wanted to have a nice smooth finish there. So I just tapped it out a little bit. And if anything doesn't look quite right, you can always kind of smush everything around with your handy dandy toothpicks. But that one looks pretty okay. And then give him some buttons. And I think maybe we'll make him a very festive guy, and we'll give him green buttons. That's cute. And he'll only have room for 2 because his bow tie is taking up some space there. So make sure I tap those down. And here is our gingerbread guy. He's a cute little boy. So I'm going to set him over here with the girl. That's the basic technique for how all of these are done. Is I just went ahead and gave them some bow ties and some bows and some ruffled skirts and some buttons on their bellies. Other than doing their faces, that's really all there is to this. I've added a face to another gingerbread boy, and I'm going to add a scarf to him. Let me show you the technique that I thought was the cutest. I experimented with this quite a bit, and I wanted it to be something simple that, wasn't too terribly difficult, but something that still looked really cute. So what I'm going to do is just kind of squiggle. I'm going to look for an area about, scarf sized, and I'm just, actually it's easier if you set it down. I'm gonna begin to draw on him with the icing and just start squiggling up and down so that it has, kind of like her skirt, a ruffled effect, but it's just a little bit tighter. And then when I get to the other end of his neck, I'm just gonna come down like, and that gives it a little texture, a little definition. So now he's got a red scarf. And I think I'll keep him in that festive trend of having red and green and give him a couple of green buttons. 1, 2 looks about right. The scarf you don't really need to tap down at all because you want it to maintain that nice ruffled look so that it looks all furry like a scarf. And there you have it. Now that I've given you a basic look at how to use icing to decorate your gingerbread boys and girls, I'm going to go ahead and just finish mine out and decorate them in a whole bunch of different combinations. And I hope that you'll take the time to just get creative and come up with whatever is going to look really cool to you. Make these little boys and girls look like you just don't even want to eat them because they're just too cute. Maybe share in the comments what you came up with, because I have a feeling that some of you are a lot more creative than I am. Thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this as much as I have. Hope you're having a very Merry Christmas season, and as always, happy baking from Impressed Bakeware.